Hello everyone, it's History Behind the Warrior, and as always, welcome back to yet another Mortal Kombat video. Today, tackling a very pleasant surprise, having come off the most recent Conan patch. I'm of course referring to the very mysterious and elusive pink male ninja of the series, Floyd. Now this has been a particularly interesting case to cover, because prior to his appearance, this was a character hinted at by Ed, all the way back during the MK11 days, effectively existing in its creative infancy. And with the release of Mortal Kombat 1, there were some hints and nods to the character's inclusion once you data mined the game, until he mysteriously disappeared around the time period of Chaos Reigns, with many, including myself, believing that he'd simply been erased. But we couldn't have been more pleasantly wrong, because not only have the files returned back to the game, but Floyd himself has finally appeared as a secret character. So, with that said, just before we do get the ball rolling, I do strongly recommend checking out the History of Floyd video, as it serves as quite a companion piece to this video, touching on and covering the troubled history throughout this character's development, which all kind of leads up into here. And also, if you haven't quite read the title, this video is all purely speculation and theory crafting, analysing the very small bits of information here to hopefully deduce what the future of this character will be. Now Floyd, even as a secret character, sits in a really interesting place in the series, because whilst secret characters aren't really anything new to the franchise, as Reptile would be the first of many that would follow, none of them have quite had the benefit of a naming convention like Rain. Because you see, when these secret characters are first introduced, they don't really have their own original moveset. It's mostly a skin of an already established character on the roster, or at the very least, an amalgamation of different moves combined into their repertoire. Thus, Floyd isn't any different in that regard from what you can see, having elements of Shang Tsung from MK11, Ermac, Scorpion, Sub-Zero, as well as Rain. He is effectively this generation and era's approach to that of a chameleon character, something that hasn't been seen in a very long time. However, there is one thing I want to note about each of these interesting secret characters that appear, and that is that usually by the next big installment, their lore, origin, and abilities get fleshed out in a pretty drastic way. Because whilst Floyd currently appears as the Pink Ninja, I have absolutely no doubt in my mind that he'll probably undergo a big visual change for a more mainline installment appearance. Because I mean, hey, look at where we started out with Reptile and Ermac and where they are now. They aren't simply just the green and red ninjas of the series, they've evolved beyond that. But how would that affect Floyd's origin and creation? Well, I'll expand on that in a bit, because there's another character I must touch on that fits into the same naming convention that Floyd does. I'm of course talking about Rain. Now of course, Rain is a homage to the artist Prince through the song Purple Rain. Do you get the dad joke yet, guys? With that said, the reason why I'm mentioning Rain is because just how much of an influence that song and artist has had on the character. Because Rain himself is a prince to a pantheon of gods, and he does of course utilize hydromancy. The reason why I'm mentioning this is because there's absolutely no doubt in my mind that we're going to see a similar creative mindset and approach applied to Floyd here. And in fact, I do believe we've already seen a very brief glimmer of this with his small fight. Because whilst the rainbow is indeed a homage to the other ninjas across the color spectrum, this rainbow aesthetic isn't just a nod to them, but also the album influence The Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd. And as you can see from the album cover, there is a ray of light that enters the prism into a wide array of colors. Now, could I be overlooking what his powers could be here? Absolutely, I do not doubt that at all. But considering how much of an influence this was on Rain, I do believe this to be fair game. So this now takes us onto his powers and abilities. What could they be? Could it be the ability to control plants? What about the use of excess and stimulation from sound? Well, I think it's been staring us in the face the entire time without us noticing it. And that is light. Because look, when it comes to MK ninjas, everyone kind of has their own gimmick. Sub-Zero has ice, Rain has water, Scorpion has fire, but none actually utilize light. And I know some of you might say, that's ridiculous. A little bit of light never hurt anyone. Except, it absolutely can, because if you were to concentrate and weaponize light into a singular beam, you effectively get a laser that can cut and disintegrate anything in its way. And in the world of MK where magic exists and such creative ideas can be melded and shaped, I firmly believe that this is what we're going to see from him here. Because I mean, it's right there. It's right in our faces, man. It goes hand in hand with the homage, adds something different from the formula, and makes him very unique in his own way. Plus, a quick food for thought here, with how Rain ends up by the climax of the game, he's kind of effectively written out for a while, opening up a slot for Floyd to fill in. So with all of the powers, abilities, and ideas here, I believe that Light is the go-to choice. But hypothetically, let's just say if he was to have another accompanying power, what would it be of the two previous choices? Well, whilst I could see some definitely leaning towards chlorokinesis, because, well, you know, photosynthesis, I want to focus on the senses aspect of it, because light allows you to see in a spectrum of different colors, something that's leaned into from this intro here. So, with sound affecting one of the senses, functioning at different frequencies to allow you to hear different tones and different noises, I do think that this is a better compatible choice. And hey, if I was to go that extra step here, like I said last time in my previous video, I'd love them to take a page out of the Warhammer book and draw some influence from the Emperor's Children, more specifically, the Noise Marines. Now, for those of you who are unaware of these sick, degenerate fucks, the Noise Marines utilize and weaponize sound, using it to cripple their enemies by bursting their eardrums, and even casting bass frequencies so powerful they can shatter your bones. They are incredibly vicious to say the least, so there is the possibility that such an idea could be implemented to Floyd, but I do believe that the utilization of light is definitely more in favour of the character. So with his powers covered, in what ways could his abilities, influence and origins impact his background? Something that could be reflective of his creation. Currently, I am of two minds and two different ideas here. One that follows the more current mainstream appeal that they're going for, one that follows the more mainstream appeal and trend they're going for, and then one that feels more loyal to the canon of the MK mythos. But I think both work and can borrow from each other. So going back to what I said a little bit earlier, of how these secret characters evolve and change upon their debut, I do think it's very possible that there may be some Nordic influence for Floyd here. I know, this is really out there, as this all does largely expand off the rainbow we see. Because in Norse mythology, the Nordic gods have what is known as the Bifrost Bridge. The Bifrost Bridge itself was a way that the gods managed to traverse the realms. The reason why I'm bringing up this idea is due to the fact that every ninja now doesn't just have a gimmick of being a ninja. Ermac is now a fully fledged sorcerer. Reptile went from human man to full-blown lizard. And when you look at the cast of characters, we don't actually have any ninjas that draw any influence from Norse mythology. And again, I know this might sound crazy, but it's not like MK hasn't drawn a lot of influence from other mythologies and cultures. We have realms like Edenia, which are based off the Garden of Eden, the Netherrealm, which is a take on Hell, and even the Edenian pantheon itself draws a lot of influence from Greek mythology and tragedy. And if they were to really lean into this route, Floyd could effectively serve as a gateway character of sorts to an entirely new realm to the series. Not necessarily saying Asgard, but a realm that most certainly could be influenced by it. And you gotta keep in mind, we haven't had a new realm introduced to the canon since Deception. It's long overdue, so I could most certainly see us going in that direction. You gotta keep in mind too, with the current era of MK also drawing a lot of influence from the MCU, as we have multiverses and cyber suits now for the Lin Kuei, I do think there's definitely quite a strong possibility here. But I mean, hey, I would definitely not be complaining about a Viking influenced Kratos and Thor ninja. Like, take my money, take it now. But if we were to lean into the more MK side of the mythos, as well as the artist and album, I think there's a way to really make all of these concepts work, whilst not having it be a little bit too zany and wacky. Because if we are to reference the origin of Floyd and the album he derives from, then we could actually say he's from the dark side of the moon. And no, I don't mean he's an alien, but I do think there's a really interesting and smart way to make this work. One that combines his prior elements, as well as give him some ties to godhood. In the current established canon and new era, we do know that the Elder Gods exist in the present here, as they are referenced to, but are entirely absent during the events of the game. And I think this could very loosely lean into that, because we know that the Elder Gods exist in a heaven of sorts, but we've never really known of its actual location. Thus, I think that the dark side of the moon would actually serve as a really smart way to put it, and have it so Floyd himself maybe was created in their vision as a callback to an older idea in the Midway era of games, serving as the Elder Gods champion. And with the Elder Gods themselves having all been the leading figures of their pantheons, you could wind up intertwining a Norse-influenced mythological figure, whom Floyd follows, who utilizes a version of the Bifrost Bridge. Again, combining all of these elements into one really tight idea. And I do think in some ways this actually kind of works, as it utilizes older ideas from the canon, whilst expanding on the present in some pretty healthy ways. Because let's face it, whenever we've gazed upon the Elder Gods, it looks like they all exist in a place suspended in space. I think this really does work here. With that said, this does largely summarize my thoughts, feelings, and ideas surrounding Floyd, and how he could fit into the MK mythos, and what powers he could wind up having. Personally, I'm very excited for the inclusion of another MK ninja, especially with how long he's been floating around the ether. It's been for quite a while now, and I can't lie, I'm really excited to see an actual canonized version of him, just to see how much we do get right here, because it would be really fun to see. So, with everything I've covered and mentioned here, how do you see them approaching Floyd in the canon? How do you think they'll tackle his powers and origins? Please do comment down below, as I'd honestly love to hear all of your different wild and crazy ideas. But for now everyone, once again, that has been it for me. So as always, stay strong, stay well, and I'll catch you in the next one.